Have you ever met someone who didn't dress rich, didn't drive the latest car, didn't post pictures from luxury vacations, and yet something about them made you feel they were truly wealthy? That's because real wealth doesn't need to shout. It moves in silence. It doesn't beg for attention, it builds. Let me share an image with you. Behind a tall stone wall out of sight, there's a quiet garden. No signs, no noise. But that garden is full of fruit. Fruit that took years to grow, fruit that will feed generations. That garden is what most people never plant, because they're too busy chasing applause. Now here's the truth. The most powerful assets behind lasting wealth are not loud. They're not obvious, and most people will never recognize them, not because they're hidden, but because they're quiet. Stay with me, because in this video, I'll show you what those assets are, and why those who have them rarely talk about them. As Jim Rohn said, success is nothing more than a few simple disciplines practiced every day. If you're ready to stop pretending and start building something real, hit that like button, subscribe, and let's begin. There's a strange pattern in our world today. The people who try the hardest to look wealthy often aren't, and the ones who seem the most average, the most boring from the outside, those are the ones quietly stacking real wealth. Loud wealth is everywhere, on your phone, your feed, your street. It's the man who pulls up in a brand new sports car with a custom license plate, designer sunglasses, and a watch that costs more than your rent. He looks the part, but many times he's just one paycheck or one credit card payment away from collapse. Now compare that to his neighbor, the one who drives a simple car, wears clothes from last season, and seems to live a modest life. What you don't see is that he owns his house, has no debt, and has investments quietly growing month after month. That man isn't rich in appearance, he's wealthy in reality. Loud wealth is like fireworks, flashy, attention-grabbing, but over quickly. Quiet wealth, on the other hand, is like a tree. It grows slowly, silently, but once it's rooted, it can weather any storm and feed others for years. Let me tell you a quick story. I once knew a young guy who maxed out his credit cards just to go on a luxury vacation. He took hundreds of photos in front of infinity pools, ordered the most expensive wine, and wore rented clothes from a rich-look boutique. For 2 weeks, his life looked like a dream. But when he came back, he had nothing but debt and anxiety. That's not wealth. That's pressure wearing a smile. And here's something Jim Rohn said that I'll never forget. It's not the blowing of the wind that determines your destination, but the set of the sail. In other words, the world can throw all kinds of noise and distractions your way, but what matters is how you choose to respond. So let me ask you directly, have you ever felt the pressure to look more successful than you really are? To dress the part, talk the part, post the part, even when your bank account says otherwise? You're not alone. But here's the truth. Real wealth doesn't need a costume. It needs character. And in the next sections, we'll explore the kind of character that builds wealth quietly, but permanently. Let me tell you something most people never realize until it's too late. The richest people in the world don't just own assets, they own their time. And if you don't own your time, then someone else does. Simple as that. Time ownership is one of the most overlooked forms of wealth, because it doesn't look impressive from the outside. You can't post it. You can't wear it. But when you have it, your entire life changes. You make choices based on what matters, not just what pays. I once met a man who earned 6 figures a year, worked in a tall building, wore fine suits, and looked successful. But here's the thing, he had to ask permission to take a walk in the sun. Every moment of his day was scheduled by someone else. Now contrast that with a small-town woman I knew who ran her own bakery. She didn't earn millions, but she chose when to work, when to rest, and when to say no. Her time was hers. That, my friend, is real wealth, because when you own your time, you own your life. You get to think. You get to breathe, you get to build, and most importantly, you get to say, "This is mine." Think of your time like a bank account. If you spend it all on other people's priorities, you'll end up bankrupt, mentally, emotionally, and financially. Here's a question I want you to sit with. Who really controls your hours? Do you spend your day building your own dream or someone else's? True wealth starts with time. And in the next section, we'll look at another invisible asset that quietly builds fortunes behind the scenes. Most people think wealth is built by what you know. But in truth, long-term wealth is often shaped by who you know and how you show up in those relationships. Invisible networks are one of the most underestimated assets in the world of real success. These networks don't look flashy. They're not made up of celebrity connections or thousands of online followers. They're built slowly, with trust, with generosity, with listening more than speaking, and they pay off in the most unexpected moments. I remember a man who got offered a high-level position in a company he hadn't even applied to. Why? Because 10 years earlier he'd helped someone solve a problem without asking for anything in return. That person never forgot. One call, one recommendation, and boom, his life changed. Meanwhile, I see people trying to network the wrong way. They send 100 cold emails, pitch themselves non-stop, and measure value by how fast someone can benefit them. That's not a network, that's a transaction list. And let's be honest, some folks think having 5,000 LinkedIn connections makes them well-connected. But if your own neighbor doesn't even know your name, you're missing the point entirely. Invisible networks are like roots under a tree. You don't see them, but they keep you standing when the wind comes. So here's the question. Are you investing in people the same way you invest in things? Because real connections compound over time, just like money does. In the next section, we'll look at the most powerful investment you'll ever make. And it has nothing to do with stocks or real estate. It's the foundation of everything. If you want to build quiet, lasting wealth, you have to master something that no one can see, but everyone can feel: yourself. Self-mastery is the foundation of every wealthy person I've ever known. Before they had investments, properties, or businesses, they had discipline, they had habits, they had inner control. Because the truth is, if you can't lead yourself, you'll never sustain success, even if you get lucky. You might get a big win once, but without self-mastery, you'll burn it, blow it, or sabotage it. Let me give you an example. I once worked with two people who earned the exact same income. One of them spent every paycheck within days. New gadgets, impulse dinners, random purchases, always broke by the 20th. The other one, he followed a rule: pay yourself first. He saved before spending, reviewed his goals weekly, and tracked every dollar. 5 years later, one was in debt. The other had investments, peace of mind, and options. Self-mastery doesn't mean being perfect. It means practicing intentional habits even when no one is watching. It's brushing your teeth and reviewing your budget. It's waking up early, not because it's trendy, but because your vision matters more than your comfort. Here's a funny one. I know people who buy 10 productivity courses and never finish even one. That's not a knowledge problem. That's a self-leadership problem. As Jim Rohn would say, don't wish it were easier, wish you were better. And better doesn't mean louder, it means stronger, inside. So let me ask you something personal. What's one small discipline that changed your life? Share it in the comments. Let's learn from each other and start building a real community of growth. In the next section, we'll explore an emotional asset that determines how wealth either grows or disappears. If money controls your emotions, then it controls your decisions. And if it controls your decisions, it controls your life. That's why one of the quietest yet most powerful assets wealthy people have is emotional detachment from money. Now let's be clear, this doesn't mean you don't care about money. It means your identity isn't tied to it. Your peace doesn't rise and fall with your bank balance. And your self-worth isn't measured by your net worth. I've seen two people lose $1,000. One of them panicked, spiraled into blame, fear, and shame. The other calmly said, "Okay, what can I learn from this?" Same situation, completely different outcome. One lost money and control, the other kept their power. Because here's the truth, money is a tool, that's all. It's not a mirror, it's not a scoreboard, and it's definitely not a mood. Let me put it like this. When you treat money like fire, you respect it. You don't worship it, but you don't fear it either. You use it with care, without letting it burn your joy or freeze your purpose. And yet most people live in extremes. Either they chase money obsessively, thinking it will solve every problem, or they fear it, reject it, and sabotage every chance to build it. Neither path leads to peace. When you detach emotionally from money, you make better decisions. You're able to invest, to give, to take risks, with wisdom, not desperation. So let me ask you, does your bank balance decide how you feel about yourself? Because when your emotions are no longer tied to money, you finally start to build real, stable, quiet wealth. And in the next section, we'll return to that image I gave you at the start and uncover what that garden behind the wall really means. At the beginning of this video, I asked you to imagine a garden behind a tall stone wall, quiet, hidden, no signs, no noise, just fruit, growing in silence. Now let me tell you what that garden really is. It's not a place, it's a life. It's your habits, your discipline, your relationships, your values. It's everything you do when no one is watching. It's the way you manage your time, the way you handle your emotions, the way you treat people who can't offer you anything. That garden grows in silence, and it doesn't need validation to bear fruit. Most people walk around looking for spotlights. They want applause, fast results, instant wealth. But the real ones, the ones who build quietly, they're planting seeds every day, seeds no one sees, until suddenly there's fruit. And by then, it's too late to catch up. That's the secret of quiet wealth. It's not in the noise, it's in the roots. As Jim Rohn would say, you don't get paid for the hour. You get paid for the value you bring to the hour. And value, my friend, is grown in silence, just like the garden behind the wall. Now, maybe you've been listening and thinking, I've heard about discipline, I've heard about habits, I've even tried them, but no matter what I do, I still feel stuck. You wake up early for a week, but nothing changes. You write down your goals, but they feel like empty words. You try to save money, but unexpected bills wipe it all out. And deep down, you wonder, am I doing something wrong? Or is all this just not meant for me? Let me tell you something most people won't. It's not that the principles don't work. It's that most people were never taught how to apply them correctly, or at the right time. They copy success without understanding its roots. They imitate results without learning the structure behind them. And that's why so many stay stuck, even when they're doing everything right. But there's a reason some people break through and others don't. And it has nothing to do with talent, luck, or motivation. It has everything to do with how they structure the foundation. If you've ever felt that quiet frustration, if you're tired of starting over and wondering why it's not working for you, then what comes next may be the missing piece you've been searching for. If this message spoke to you, even just one sentence, one thought, one shift in perspective, don't keep it to yourself. Quiet wealth isn't built alone. And the people around you? They might need this more than you know. Share this video with someone who's tired of chasing the noise and is ready to build something real. Like it, not for the algorithm, but because it tells YouTube you want more of this. And most importantly, leave a comment. Tell me, what's the one idea that hit you the hardest today? Was it the garden, the time, the habits? Let's talk about it. Let's grow together, because this isn't just a channel, it's a community, a movement of people who are done pretending, done performing, and ready to build real wealth, quietly and powerfully. You don't need permission. You don't need applause. You need alignment, clarity, and consistency. And you've already taken the first step just by being here. So don't let this be another video you watch and forget. Make it a line in your story, the moment where things started to change. I'll see you in the next one. We're just getting started.